The room was filled with soft golden light from the dim bulbs, casting delicate shadows over the silk sheets and flower garlands that still smelled fresh. Neelam sat quietly on the wedding bed, her bridal dress heavy on her shoulders, her jewelry pressing against her skin as though it weighed 100 pounds. Her heart raced in nervous anticipation, every beat reminding her of the lifetime of dreams she had nurtured about this night. Across from her sat Amr, her new husband, who hadn't spoken a word since entering the room. Instead, his eyes were fixed on her, unblinking, as though he was searching her very soul. At first, Neelam lowered her gaze, shy and uncertain. She waited for him to say something, anything, to break the silence. Minutes passed like hours, and when the weight of waiting became unbearable, she finally lifted her eyelashes and looked at him. His expression startled her. He was still lost in his thoughts, completely consumed by whatever was racing through his mind. Gathering courage, she whispered softly, "Why are you staring at me like this, Amir?" "What is on your mind?" Her voice seemed to awaken him from a trance. Slowly, his lips curved into a faint smile, and he said in a hushed tone, "You are extraordinarily beautiful, Neelam. When our engagement was arranged 2 months ago, my mother brought me many proposals before you. None of them touched my heart. But when I saw your picture, I melted in that very moment. I told my mother that this was the woman I wanted, no one else. She was overjoyed because she longed to see me married. Being her only son, it was her greatest wish. I could not wait, so I insisted we marry as soon as possible. And here you are, mine at last." Neelam's chest loosened. The tension that had knotted her breath began to fade as she listened to his affectionate words. She smiled shyly, allowing herself to believe she was stepping into the beginning of a loving marriage. Amer continued, his voice steady yet oddly distant. "I counted every moment until this day. Every phone call with you felt too short, every second away from you unbearable. And now, finally, my heart's desires are fulfilled." But then, his tone shifted. His eyes hardened, his voice grew heavy. "Yet I am troubled, Neelam. Since I entered this room, I have been torn between two thoughts. My heart whispers your name, but my mind reminds me of something else, something worth 25 lakh rupees, and I cannot ignore it." Neelam froze, confusion flashing across her face. What could he mean? Why was money entering their first night of marriage? The silence that followed carried the weight of betrayal, a storm about to break. Neelam's heart skipped a beat at Amer's strange words. She stared at him in disbelief, trying to make sense of what he had just said. 25 lakh? She repeated, her voice trembling with confusion. What are you talking about? Amer leaned back slightly, his eyes never leaving her face. Your father, he said bluntly. Before the wedding procession left your house, he whispered something in my ear. He told me that if I took you home tonight as my bride, and then returned you as a divorced woman, he would hand me 25 lakh rupees, a fortune I could never hope to earn in my entire life. The words struck Neelam like daggers. For a moment, she wondered if it was some cruel joke, an attempt to tease her. Her hands clenched the fabric of her bridal dress, and she forced a laugh that sounded more like a sob. This isn't funny, Amer. My father would never do such a thing. He searched for months to find the right proposal for me. He always said marriage is a bond for life. He would never encourage my destruction. You are joking, aren't you? But Amer's face remained cold, his voice unshaken. Neelam, this is no joke. I am telling you the truth. Your father's offer has haunted me since I walked into this room. My heart says I should hold you close, begin a new life with you, but my mind cannot stop calculating the weight of 25 lakh rupees. Do you realize what that kind of money means for a man like me? I could live my entire life without worrying about money again. Neelam felt her chest tighten, her breath growing shallow. She shook her head desperately, her eyes wide with horror. You cannot be serious. You cannot throw away a marriage for money. You swore you loved me, Amer. You promised me forever. Her voice cracked as she clutched at his sleeve. But Amer pulled away, his gaze hard as stone. Forgive me, Neelam, but I cannot resist. My decision is final. Before she could speak again, his voice thundered with finality, echoing in the silent room. I divorce you. I divorce you. I divorce you. The words fell like hammers, shattering Neelam's world. She felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Her bridal night had turned into a nightmare she could never have imagined. Tears streamed down her face, but Amer stood up coldly and added, Do not cry now. We must hurry. If we delay, your father may change his mind and cut my share. Come, I will drop you back at your home. Numb, trembling, Neelam could hardly move. Amer seized her arm and forced her to walk, dragging her out of the decorated room that had only moments ago held her dreams. Her new life had ended before it even began. The night air was cold as Amer pulled Neelam along, almost dragging her to the car. She sat silently in the passenger seat, her tears soaking into her bridal veil, her hands trembling in her lap. Every corner of the city they passed felt like it was mocking her, every light outside a witness to her humiliation. When the car stopped in front of her parents' house, her heart nearly stopped too. How could she face them like this? What would people say if they knew she had been divorced on her very first night? Amer rang the bell without hesitation. Neelam's father himself opened the door, his face calm as though he had been expecting them. Without any courtesy, Amer spoke in a flat voice. Here is your daughter, safe and sound. Now where is my payment? Neelam's eyes widened in horror. She clutched her father's arm, searching for a denial, some sign that this was all a cruel misunderstanding. But instead, she watched as her father calmly handed Amer a briefcase filled with cash. Amer counted it briefly, smirked, and walked away into the night without a backward glance. Neelam collapsed onto the doorstep, sobbing uncontrollably. Why, father? Why would you do this to me? Her voice was filled with anguish. A father is supposed to protect his daughter, to help her build a home, not destroy it. Why would you give him money to throw me away like garbage? Her father bent down, lifted her by the shoulders, and led her inside. His eyes were heavy with sorrow, but his words were steady. Neelam, listen to me. This was for your own good. After your nikah, a relative of Amer approached me quietly. He told me Amer was not what he pretended to be, that he had already been married multiple times, each time ruining a woman's life and leaving her broken. At first, I dismissed it as gossip, but when I investigated, I discovered the truth. He was a fraud, a deceiver who would have destroyed you slowly, piece by piece. Neelam's sobs only grew louder. Then why didn't you stop the wedding? Why let it happen at all? Why humiliate me like this? Her father sighed deeply. The wedding had already begun. The guests were here, the rituals complete. Breaking it at the last moment would have stained your name forever. Instead, I chose another way. I gave him an offer he could not refuse. By sacrificing one night, I saved you from a lifetime of misery. Better to end it quickly than let you drown in years of sorrow. But Neelam could not see wisdom in his decision. To her, it felt like betrayal. Her mother entered the room with a glass of turmeric milk, her eyes brimming with tears, whispering, Drink this, my child, it will calm your heart. Neelam slapped the glass away, her voice breaking into screams. Don't comfort me with milk when my entire life has been burned to ashes. Her cries filled the house, shaking every corner with the sound of heartbreak. The days that followed were a blur of silence, tears, and unanswered questions. Neelam confined herself to her room, avoiding the eyes of relatives and neighbors. Every glance, she felt, carried whispers of her failure, though none of it had been her fault. Her father tried to sit with her often, speaking softly about resilience, about moving forward. But to Neelam, his words rang hollow. How could the man who orchestrated her humiliation now expect her to trust him? Weeks passed before her father raised the subject again. One evening, while sitting with her in the garden, he placed a photograph in her lap. This is Raheel, he said carefully. A good man, educated, hardworking, and sincere. I've spoken with his family. They know everything about what happened, yet they still wish for this marriage to take place. Neelam stared at the photograph without a word. The thought of marriage again made her stomach tighten with dread. She remembered the sting of betrayal, the shame of being discarded like a transaction. Her first instinct was to refuse, but her father pressed on gently. You deserve happiness, Neelam. You deserve a partner who will stand beside you. Raheel is not Amr. He is honest. I've made certain of it this time. Something in his tone, almost pleading, softened her resistance. Against her wounded instincts, she gave a hesitant nod. But no engagement, she said firmly. If this has to happen, it should be marriage directly. I cannot bear the waiting and the whispers, her father agreed. Within weeks, preparations were quietly made. The ceremony was smaller this time, stripped of grand celebrations. Neelam walked through it with a heart divided, one half buried in fear, the other clinging to a fragile thread of hope. On the wedding night, she entered Raheel's room with trembling hands, memories of Amer's cold words still echoing in her mind, but Raheel's demeanor was different. He smiled warmly, lifting her veil with care. Neelam, he said softly, placing a gold ring on her finger, I know your first marriage ended painfully. I know how deeply scars can cut, but I promise you, I will try to heal them. I will give you all the love and respect you deserve. For the first time in weeks, Neelam felt a flicker of comfort. His words were gentle, his eyes sincere. Maybe, just maybe, this time things would be different. She allowed herself a small smile and whispered, I hope your promises are true. But before the night could settle into peace, Raheel's phone rang. He answered casually, yet within seconds his expression changed. The warmth drained from his face, replaced by disbelief and unease. Neelam's heart sank as she watched him listen in silence. When he hung up, his eyes met hers with a weight that made her blood run cold. Neelam, he said slowly, your father just called me. Her world began to spin again. The silence that followed Raheel's words was deafening. Neelam clutched her dupatta, her knuckles white, her heartbeat drumming in her ears. What did he say? She whispered, almost afraid of the answer. Raheel's voice was low, conflicted. He offered me 25 lakh rupees. If I divorce you tonight. His eyes dropped to the floor as if ashamed, yet the temptation lingered in the way his words faltered. Neelam's heart sank. It was happening again. No, she pleaded, her voice trembling. Raheel, you can't. Not you too. My father has gone mad, but you don't have to listen to him. You promised me love, you promised me respect. Raheel looked torn, pacing across the room. You don't understand. I've struggled for years. 2 years ago, I started a job with a private company that barely paid me enough to survive. I worked hard, gave them everything, but the rewards never came. I've dreamed of starting my own business, of building a future. Tonight, your father gave me the key to that dream. His words cut her deeper than knives. Neelam's tears spilled freely. And for that dream, you would throw me away? Just like Amer did? He turned to her, his eyes filled with guilt yet firm in their decision. Neelam, I am sorry. I don't want to hurt you, but 25 lakh is a chance I cannot let slip. My heart says stay, but my mind tells me this is my only escape from a lifetime of struggle. Before she could protest further, he took a deep breath and spoke with finality. I divorce you. I divorce you. I divorce you. The words echoed in her head, crushing whatever fragile hope she had rebuilt. She sank to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably as Raheel closed his eyes in shame. Please forgive me, he whispered, though his actions left no room for forgiveness. Later that night, he drove her back to her father's house. Neelam refused to speak, staring blankly out the window, her soul numb. At the gate, her father welcomed her as though nothing unusual had happened. My daughter has returned, he said with a strange calmness, while handing Raheel the briefcase full of cash. Inside, Neelam collapsed onto the sofa, shaking with rage. Why? She cried out. Why would you do this to me again? Do you think my life is a game? Do you think I am a pawn you can buy and sell? Her father sat beside her, speaking with a quiet firmness. I saved you again, Neelam. Raheel was not the man you thought he was. He chose money over you. Better to learn tonight than after years of pain, but to Neelam, his reasoning felt like poison. She no longer knew if her father was her protector or her greatest enemy. The days after her second divorce were darker than the first. Neelam stayed locked inside her room, barely eating, barely speaking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Rahil's face, the moment his promises dissolved into betrayal. The memory burned like fire, and her father's justifications only deepened her wounds. She could not decide which was worse, the weakness of the men she had married or the schemes of the man who had raised her. Weeks slipped by in a haze until one evening her father knocked gently on her door. His voice carried an unsettling calmness. "Neelam, open the door. I must speak with you." Reluctantly, she obeyed. He entered with a photograph in his hand. "I have found another man for you," he announced, as though the last two disasters had never occurred. Neelam's eyes blazed with anger. "Another marriage? Haven't you ruined me enough? Twice humiliated, twice discarded. Do you want me to be a laughingstock for the entire world?" Her father's face tightened, but his words were coated with manipulation. "Listen to me, my daughter. You cannot spend your life locked away. You deserve a husband who will truly care for you. This time I have chosen carefully." She turned her face away. "No, I won't. I refuse." That refusal seemed to push him into desperation. He dropped to his knees, tears pooling in his eyes. "If you refuse, then I will destroy my own marriage. I will divorce your mother and punish myself for failing you. Do you want to see our family broken apart because of your stubbornness?" The threat cut Neelam deeply. She glanced at her mother, who stood quietly in the doorway, tears sliding down her face. The sight weakened her resolve. She could not bear to see her mother abandoned. Exhausted, broken, and cornered, Neelam finally whispered, "Fine. Do as you wish. I will marry again." Preparations were made quickly, almost in secrecy. The ceremony felt hollow to Neelam, every smile forced, every ritual an echo of the ones before. She went through the motions like a prisoner accepting her fate. On the wedding night, she sat silently, her heart already numb. Her new husband entered, hesitant at first, but it didn't take long for his words to mirror those of the men before him. Under her father's influence, he too divorced her that very night. By the time she was driven back to her parents' house once more, Neelam's grief had turned into a storm of rage. Standing at the gate, she looked at her father with fiery eyes. "If you call this saving me, then I would rather have been destroyed." Her voice cracked with fury, and for the first time, her mother's hands trembled as she tried to offer comfort. After the third humiliation, Neelam withdrew further into herself. Nights were sleepless, her pillow wet with tears, while days dragged on in heavy silence. The house no longer felt like home, it felt like a cage. Every time she looked at her father, anger boiled in her veins, yet he carried on as though nothing was broken, speaking of her future as if her past hadn't been shattered to pieces. One afternoon, while she sat staring blankly at the window, he entered with a strange brightness in his eyes. "Neelam," he said gently, "I have found someone who will restore your life. This man is different. His name is Rizwan." The name meant nothing to her. Exhaustion lined her voice as she replied, "It doesn't matter who he is." I know how this story ends, but her father pressed on. "No, listen. Rizwan is honest. He comes from a respectable family. I've investigated thoroughly. He is strong in character, not greedy, not weak like the others. This time, you must trust me." Neelam laughed bitterly. "Trust you? After everything? You've turned my life into a spectacle. Do you think I can stand another night of betrayal?" Her father's face fell, but he refused to step back. "If you will not agree, then know this. I cannot live watching you like this. You are my only reason to breathe. If you remain broken, then I too will break." Her mother, standing quietly by the door, pleaded with her eyes. Neelam's heart softened despite herself. She had no strength left to fight, no energy to argue. "Fine," she whispered. "If this Rizwan is so perfect, then arrange it. But this time, I will not play the part of a happy bride. I will not pretend to hope the wedding was arranged quickly. It was small, subdued, almost weary, as if even the guests had grown tired of attending the same drama." On the stage, Neelam sat like a statue, her face hidden behind her veil. When Rizwan finally approached her later that night, his demeanor surprised her. He did not hover with nervous excitement or speak with forced charm. Instead, he sat quietly, his voice steady when he finally spoke. Neelam, he said, lifting her veil carefully, I know your past. I know the pain you've carried, but listen closely. I will not ask about the divorces. They are not your fault. I accept you as you are completely, without condition. Neelam studied his face, searching for deceit, but found none. Still, bitterness lingered in her tone. You will change too. They all did. Rizwan shook his head firmly. No, I am not them. I do not trade dignity for money. I will stand by you no matter what comes. For the first time in years, something stirred within Neelam, something small, fragile, but undeniably real. It was the faintest flicker of hope. That faint flicker of hope in Neelam's chest terrified her as much as it comforted her. She had trusted before, only to be left broken. But Rizwan's steady words, his refusal to see her as damaged, made her want to believe again. Still, doubt gnawed at her. She needed proof. Proof that this man was truly different. The chance came sooner than expected. A few nights after the wedding, Rizwan received an uninvited visitor at their door. It was a messenger sent by Neelam's father, carrying the same poisoned offer, 25 lakh rupees in exchange for divorcing his new bride. Rizwan listened in silence, then dismissed the man without a word. When he returned inside, his jaw was tight, his hands clenched. Neelam saw the storm in his eyes. What did he say? She asked, her voice already shaking. He hesitated, then told her everything. Her face turned pale. So it's true, she whispered. Even with you, he hasn't stopped. He will never stop until I am destroyed. But Rizwan's reply was unlike anything she had heard before. Neelam, listen to me. Your so-called father may think he can buy my loyalty, but he cannot buy my conscience. You are my wife, my dignity, my responsibility. I will not abandon you for money. His words struck her like light in a dark cave. Yet her mind, sharpened by repeated betrayals, was restless. Then help me uncover the truth, she urged. Pretend you accepted his deal. Pretend you divorced me. If we play along, we can expose why he is doing this, why he trades my life for money every time. Rizwan studied her face for a long moment before nodding. If that is what you want, we will do it. But I promise, Neelam, no matter what I say or pretend, I will never let go of you in reality. The very next day, they returned to her father's house. Rizwan acted his role with precision, informing him that he had followed instructions and divorced Neelam. Her father's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as though he had achieved a long-awaited victory. He invited them inside, calling for witnesses and even a lawyer, wanting to document the proof of Neelam's instability. Meanwhile, Neelam sat silently, feigning despair. Her mother, with familiar mechanical care, brought her a glass of turmeric milk. Neelam took it into her hands, but instead of drinking, she poured it discreetly into a potted plant by her side. Then she lay back, pretending to fall into the same dazed sleep that had followed every previous wedding night. As she listened to the low murmur of voices in the next room, her father, the lawyer, the nurse, her suspicions hardened into certainty. This was not just betrayal, it was a plan. A carefully staged conspiracy to break her over and over again. And now, with Rizwan by her side, she was determined to expose it. Neelam lay motionless on the couch, her eyelids half closed, every sense sharpened beneath the mask of false sleep. She heard footsteps approaching, then the voice of a nurse who had clearly been summoned many times before. This girl suffers from madness, the nurse declared firmly, her tone rehearsed. She cannot live with a man. Each time she marries, she turns violent, unstable, and then demands a divorce. It is better you stop forcing these marriages. She is not fit for family life. Neelam's heart pounded in her chest. Madness? Violence? None of it was true. Yet here was a stranger repeating the very script her father had been writing all along. She tightened her fists under the blanket, forcing herself not to react. A moment later, the lawyer cleared his throat. If this is the case, he said, then it must be formally recorded. Otherwise, her repeated divorces will invite unwanted scrutiny. Her father's voice followed, calm and calculating. Yes, write it down. Say she suffers from mental illness. That way, no one will blame the men who leave her. Neelam could take it no longer. She sat upright, her eyes blazing with fury. Lies, she cried, startling everyone in the room. Every word of this is a lie. I am not mad. I am your victim. My so-called father sold me marriage after marriage for the same price, 25 lakh rupees. He has destroyed my life again and again. Rizwan stepped forward, his face resolute. And I stand as witness. He offered me the same deal, but I refused. I will not trade my wife's dignity for money. The lawyer's eyes narrowed. If this is true, then why? Why would a father wish for his own daughter to be humiliated like this? Silence hung in the air until the lawyer's voice softened. Perhaps you should know something, Neelam. The man you call father is not your real father at all. The room spun. Neelam staggered back, her breath short. What are you saying? The lawyer's gaze was steady. Your real father died years ago. Before his death, he left all his property and wealth in your name, but with one condition. The inheritance would be transferred only after you had a stable marriage. The man you know as father is your stepfather. He has been sabotaging every marriage, ensuring you never meet the condition, so the wealth remains out of your reach. And your mother, she has been his accomplice. Neelam turned to her mother, betrayal etched in every line of her face. You knew? She whispered, her voice breaking. You stood by while he sold me? You handed me turmeric milk while he handed me to monsters? Her mother lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks, but offered no denial. It was Rizwan who spoke the words Neelam already felt. This was never love, Neelam. It was greed. Greed that turned your blood ties into chains. Neelam stood in the center of the room, her body trembling, not from weakness, but from the storm gathering inside her. The walls that had once been her shelter now felt like the bars of a prison built from betrayal. Her mother's silence, her stepfather's greed, the nurse's lies. Every piece of the puzzle was clear. For years she had been deceived, traded like an object, humiliated for money that was never hers to see. She turned to Rizwan, her voice steady though her eyes glistened with tears. I will not let them destroy me again. I will not live as their puppet. If this is the truth, then I will fight back. Rizwan placed a firm hand on her shoulder, his expression unwavering. And I will fight beside you. You are not alone anymore, Neelam. Together, they walked into the lawyer's office the very next day. Neelam filed an official complaint accusing her stepfather and mother of fraud, manipulation, and cruelty. The evidence was overwhelming. Repeated patterns of arranged marriages, large sums of money exchanged, and false medical claims to cover their scheme. The lawyer, now convinced, assured her the law would protect her rights. Within weeks, police arrived at the house that had once echoed with her cries. Her stepfather protested, shouting that he had only done what was best for her, but the officers paid no heed. He was led away in handcuffs, his empire of deception collapsing around him. Her mother, weeping uncontrollably, tried to cling to Neelam, but Neelam stepped back, her voice breaking yet resolute. You were my last hope, and you chose him over me. Whatever love you had for me drowned the day you agreed to poison my life. The court recognized Neelam as the rightful heir to her late father's estate. The wealth that had been used as bait to destroy her now became her shield. But to her, the money was not victory. It was a reminder of the curse that greed can bring. She vowed never to let it control her, never to let it decide her worth again. Rizwan stood by her side through every proceeding, every sleepless night, every flashback of betrayal. Unlike the others, he proved himself not with words, but with steadfast loyalty. And slowly, Neelam began to heal. She no longer saw herself as a victim, but as a survivor, someone who had walked through fire and come out tempered, stronger than ever before. One evening, standing beside Rizwan, she whispered into the quiet air, "They tried to break me with money." But what they didn't know is that dignity cannot be bought, love cannot be bought, and I cannot be bought. For the first time in years, Neelam smiled, not out of pretense, but from the deep relief of freedom. Her story was no longer one of betrayal. It had become a story of resilience.